I'm Bhavik, and Pavel and I worked on adding support for checkpoint restore of files open on unmounted mounts. So I'll talk about that, the problems we faced. So basically, whenever CRIU needs to checkpoint restore a file descriptor, it needs to know what mount it was opened on, so that we can open it on the same mount during restore. So for that, we get the mount ID of the mount from FD info, and using that mount ID, we get whatever mount info we need from proc. However, in case of an unmounted mount, so like a mount that has been unmounted with MNT detach, and we have like an open file descriptor of the mount that we need to checkpoint restore. In that case, we don't have mount information from proc, and also stat mount does not work on these mounts since they do not belong to any mount namespace once they get unmounted. So we thought about two different ways that we could export this information from the kernel. The first one was a new special kernel-only unmount namespace for these mounts. So we would also modify statics to expose a mount namespace ID and basically do something like this to get the mount ID and mount namespace ID, pass that along to stat mount, and yeah. But this approach had lots of problems. Yeah, we sent out this patch upstream, and the maintainers pointed out a couple of problems that our implementation of cleaning up these bounds from unbound namespace was incorrect, and also modified some pretty performance sensitive code. And also it would be weird to be able to call stat mount on a mount that list mount does not surface, because these mounts do not belong to any mount namespace. They would not end up being surfaced by list mount, but we would still be able to call stat mount on them, which does not seem correct. Seems confusing. And we also complicated locking during unmount and also during mount put, so yeah, which was unacceptable. You can look at the action thread. Christian also pointed out a bunch of more issues with this as well. So we tried a different approach, which was to allow statmount to work to give mount info for the file descriptor. We could pass a file descriptor to, and it would give mount info for that file descriptor. So we introduced a new stat mount by FD flag, and modified struct mount to take in a FD. So this would also work in our case for unmounted mounts. We could pass it an FD on an unmounted mount, and we would get everything except the mount point and the mount namespace. So yeah. And this was way simpler to implement than the unmount namespace approach. We only had to modify code related to stat mount. And it also helps in the general case of getting mount info via an FD. Uh, so instead of previously getting mount ID from statics and using ioctl to get the mount namespace ID, we could directly call stat mount to the stat mount by FD flag. We sent out around 6 different versions of this patch set, and finally V7 was accepted, and it should be in Linux next soon. So I'll also talk a little bit about how we implemented checkpoint restore. Okay, first, this discussion for permission checks. So StatMount requires the user to be sysadmin in the user namespace to which the mount namespace belongs to. But in cases of file descriptors, we decided upon not having these permission checks, since all file system related information is already available via fstatfs, and that does not have any permission checks. And mount info is also available via proc without any capability check. And also, since we have access to an FD on the mount, it makes sense to be able to access the mountinfo. So, and also currently we only support uh, checkpoint restore of files on unmounted bind mounts. So we don't uh, haven't really thought about doing dumping and checkpoint restoring in case there is a file system. We just use the file system of the regular mount. So during dump, CRIU creates a list of all mounts called mountinfo before it starts dumping FDs. And so during FD dump, if we get a mount ID not in the mountinfo list, uh, we call statmount using with statmount by FD and get mountinfo that way and mark this to be an unmounted mount in the image. And then during restore, we create a list of all these detached mounts. I mean, basically the same thing, detached, mounted, the same here. And we create a temporary mount point for uh, each mount. Since we don't know the actual mount point because it was unmounted. Uh, and then we mount file systems using the regular mount of which we are aware now. Then we open them here at this whatever file name they have, and finally at the end we unmount using mnt detach and remove our temporary mounts. So, yeah. And also in the future we could think about ways to export mount info for anonymous mounts uh, whenever we plan on uh, maybe implementing checkpoint restore for those. So anonymous mounts can be created using FS mount or open tree, open tree with open tree. And we can also work on cases where we don't have a bind mount and we have to dump the file system. Uh, so in those cases, if it's like a in-memory file system like tempfs, we can't simply uh, mount the device and get whatever info. We would have to do some sort of partial dump. So basically, recreate only those files and subdirectories would have access to. Uh, so yeah, that's basically it. I would like to thank a lot of people, all CRIU people that helped review code. And this was my first time working with the kernel. So thank you to the maintainers as well. I'll take any questions.
Well, thanks for working on this and coming up with a solution for this, because like that surely wasn't an easy problem to solve. How do you, when you currently restore mount trees, you attach them somewhere, right? So you do it in a private temporary, sorry, in a private temporary directory, I assume, somewhere, and then move it
Yeah.
into place. I'm not sure if you've been following this, but some kernel releases ago, I don't remember exactly, I made it possible that because we had the restriction that OpenTree clone could only be called once. So basically, you couldn't use anonymous mounts, so mounts that were created via OpenTree clone or FS mount. You couldn't stack them. So you couldn't put detached mounts onto detached mount. That is now possible. So you can assemble complex mount trees completely based on anonymous mount namespaces. There are some logical restrictions to this. Like you can't, if you stack another detached mount tree onto another detached mount tree, it always must be the root of the mount tree. So you must move all mounts between anonymous mount namespaces. You can't partially move that across because that would complicate the logic too much. But basically, the message that I want to get across is it would be interesting to see if you can restore mount trees without actually having to expose them temporarily anywhere in the file system hierarchy. You just do it like completely in a detached anonymous mount namespace, and then ultimately move them into place. But I don't know if that's actually feasible. There might be some mount propagation stuff that you need to do that would require you to be attached to the file system. But anyway, it's just something that I wanted to mention.
Yeah, I also am not fully sure. I think Pavel might know more about how we do.
I hope you can hear me, right?
Yes, we can hear you, Pavel.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Pavel, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. That's really a great idea, Christian. Actually, yeah. Now we create those mounts, just recreating namespaces for them. So we create a bunch of mount namespaces. Then we create all mounts like on the kind of host, but it's also like a service namespace. And then we move all those mounts to the right position in all the right namespaces. And only after we reconstructed everything, we start opening files. And yeah, that's a little bit complex, but currently like we have namespace to separate. So we expose it to some service namespace temporarily. Maybe we can also use the anonymous namespace instead, so nobody else can join this namespace while we are constructing it. It can be a good thing.
I think it just really depends whether you have any benefits. Like if there's not actually any benefit for you, then like doing it the other way is obviously equally plausible. Like the usual reason why we wanted to have detached mount trees is exactly for the scenario where we in systemd, for example, where we want to be sure when we set up a service or when we update a service's state directory or etc or var or whatever, we wanted to be sure that it is like a private mount tree that no one can get access to, and then we just atomically make it visible for the first time ever in the service. So in that case, it's relevant, but if it's not for you, then
yeah, in CRIU it makes less sense because we anyway construct everything beforehand and then give the access atomically to the processes. So maybe not that important.
Yeah. Well, cool.
Maybe for CRIU people, I need to point out that the pull request we have is kind of draft yet. We might optimize some things. Maybe like we have the loop of unmounting all those detached mounts. Maybe we can optimize it, but just putting those mounts into some service mount namespace, and they will be unmounted on removing this namespace kind of thing. But yeah.
So one question I have that is more global, but that I've been wondering, how do you deal with checkpoint restoring any workloads that somehow use global identifiers? Like for example, systemd in a lot of places generates, even just in user, generates global identifiers or uses global identifiers that we expose in the kernel, and then validates that things are still in order. So in that case, a checkpoint restore of such a workload would fail, right? Do you know what I'm saying?
I guess I don't. Maybe
like for
Andrei can help.
For stuff like the mount namespace ID, if like some workload like systemd decides to remember what mount ID was used for this mount, and then
we are doomed.
Yeah, it will fail, but we are lucky that not so many workloads are using this stuff right now.
Yeah. I'm just trying to say, like, this is something that sometimes keeps popping into my mind, but like APIs that we do, we can't unconditionally avoid global identifiers.
Yeah, it's going to be the problem for us. But for now, it's not very often.
Yeah, I was gonna say for libpathrs, which is the path, I've given talks about it before, but I gave a talk about it yesterday. But for that, one of the hardening mechanisms we have is that we check whether or not the unique mount ID has changed. But now it's not global for the entire process, so you'd have to be really unlucky to checkpoint like in the middle of the lookup or something. But yeah, I think that you might. It's possible you start seeing it more and more, especially now that you have unique mount IDs and stuff like that is like very prominently available with StatXA. I agree. You'll probably start seeing it more, unfortunately. And unfortunately, it's one of those things which like super helpful as a security hardening, but it makes things a lot more difficult.
I think it's fine. I mean, it's fine as long as you have workloads. It's basically if you have a workload that knows it wants to be checkpoint restored. Like I assume, like for example, the Java engine and so on. It probably knows that it is relevant. It's just a matter of then they need to take care to not make extensive use of global identifiers if they want to be checkpoint restorable. I think that's at least partially the answer, because the alternative is like we never use global identifiers anywhere, and I think that's just not like just alone for security reasons. It's just not feasible.
You know, like try to use CRIU for some random workloads. It probably will not work.
Oh yeah,
We need some cooperation from the workload.
Do you remember back when we had it in LXD, now Incus, when we added CRIU support? It was like a generically plumbed into LXD/Incus, and it worked for Alpine containers, like where the init system basically didn't use any interesting kernel features whatsoever. But we have never successfully managed to restore a systemd workload ever. Yeah, it's fine. It's not a critique. It's just a observation. Like I think that's not a target.
Yeah, in Virtuoso, we do kind of a lot of work on this thing. We try to checkpoint restore our system containers and have, I believe, 600 patches on top of mainstream. So there are just things that are too risky, too huge to implement in mainstream. And yeah, we have attempts to do that in Virtuoso containers, OpenVZ.
Okay.
But yeah, I just want to repeat what Christian said earlier, that I actually, even outside of checkpoint restore, I really like the fact that you can now do statmount on FDs, because I understand why, obviously there's a reason why we didn't go that way with the original API, but it's something that is really quite nice, especially for when you have, like, yes, it's fine, you can convert to identifiers, like it's not the end of the world, but it's quite nice that you can do it on FDs, because it makes lots of programs a lot easier to write. So thanks for that, even outside of checkpoint restore.
The only reason, no, not the only, but one of the reasons what we did is like a problem that Jeff yesterday talked about implicitly as well. Is like we would have to like iterate in any case, like find the next mount, and then we would have had to return FDs, like allocate FDs, and it would have been just insane. Like if you had 1,000 of containers and all of them did like statmount and iterated by allocating FDs, like performance would have been so unspeakably terrible. Like I think FD iteration based APIs don't scale sufficiently. I think I don't even know if we have proper FD based iteration APIs. I don't think so.
Yeah, I wasn't saying that's the way the API should have been. I think it's nice that you can at least do it now. Yeah. Obviously, yeah. There was, as I said, there was scalability problems with doing it for everything, because it would, it would be awful. But yeah, but it's nice we can do it now. So thanks. Anyone else?
Okay, we have 9 minutes. We have 9 minutes left. That means we can get a little bit of a break before the next talk starts at 1.
Thank you.